The text came through at 2:47 p.m. on a Wednesday. I was in the middle of a conference call with investors from Singapore, discussing the expansion of my tech platform into Asian markets. My phone buzzed on the desk. I glanced at it. Mom asterisk, we're selling the house. You have 48 hours to get your stuff out. After that, it's going to the dump. I stared at the message for a moment. Excused myself from the call. Read it again. The house. Our childhood home on Riverside Drive. The 4-bedroom colonial where I'd grown up. Where I'd learned to ride a bike in the driveway. Where I'd studied for my SATs at the kitchen table. They were selling it. And giving me 2 days' notice. I typed back, "You can't sell what you don't own." The response came immediately. Mom asterisk, face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy. Very funny, Jessica. Your father and I have owned this house for 30 years. We can do whatever we want with it. 48 hours. Don't make this difficult. I smiled. Opened my phone's files. Found the document I was looking for. Took a screenshot. And sent it to her. It was the property deed for 4782 Riverside Drive. Dated 14 months ago. With my name on it. Jessica Marie Hamilton. Owner. Then I put my phone on silent and went back to my meeting. By the time my call ended an hour later, I had 17 missed calls from my mother. 12 from my father. 6 from my older brother Tyler. And 32 text messages. I scrolled through them while sipping my coffee. Mom asterisk, what is this? Mom asterisk, call me right now. Mom asterisk, this is a fake document. Mom asterisk, Jessica Marie Hamilton, you call me this instant. Mom asterisk, your father is calling the lawyer. Mom asterisk, this is fraud. Mom asterisk, where did you get this? Dad asterisk, what the hell is going on? Dad asterisk, call me. Dad asterisk, Jessica, this isn't funny. Dad asterisk, we need to talk now. Tyler asterisk, mom is freaking out. What did you do? Tyler asterisk, seriously, Jess, call them. Tyler asterisk, they're saying you forged documents? Tyler asterisk, this is crazy even for you. I set my phone down. Looked out my office window at the Seattle skyline. The Space Needle in the distance. The sound beyond that. I'd moved here 6 years ago. Right after college. Took a job at a startup for $45,000 a year and lived in an apartment with 2 roommates. My parents had been disappointed. They'd wanted me to move back home. Get a real job at a bank or insurance company. Settle down. Instead, I'd worked 18-hour days. Learned to code. Built relationships. Saved every penny. 3 years in, I'd launched my own company. A platform connecting freelance developers with businesses that needed custom software. It had grown faster than I'd imagined. Within 2 years, we had 50,000 developers on the platform and revenue of $23 million. Last year, we'd been acquired by a Fortune 500 tech company for $340 million. My share? $127 million. I'd stayed on as CEO of the division. Salary of $850,000 a year plus stock options. I had a penthouse in downtown Seattle. A vacation home in Maui. A car collection that included a vintage Porsche and a brand new Mercedes. And my family had no idea. None of it. To them, I was still Jessica the computer girl, who'd moved away and worked some vague tech job they didn't understand. They'd never asked about my work. Never visited me in Seattle. Never seemed interested in my life at all. But they'd been very interested in asking me for money. Small amounts at first. $500 here. $1,000 there. Just until Dad's commission check comes through. Just to cover Tyler's car payment. Then the amounts got bigger. $10,000 for Mom's surgery. $25,000 for Tyler's wedding. $40,000 when Dad's business hit a rough patch. I'd sent the money. Every time. No questions asked. Because they were family. But I'd noticed something. They never said thank you. Never asked how I could afford it. Never acknowledged that maybe, just maybe, I was doing okay for myself. They just took. And took. And took. The breaking point had come 14 months ago. I'd flown home for Thanksgiving. My first visit in 2 years. I'd been busy with the acquisition, with building my new division, with my actual life. Dinner was tense. Dad barely spoke to me. Mom kept sighing dramatically. Tyler made passive-aggressive comments about how nice it must be to have so much free time for traveling. After dinner, I'd overheard them talking in the kitchen. I was in the hallway about to join them when I heard my name. I don't understand why Jessica couldn't help us more, Mom was saying. We're about to lose the house. She's selfish, Tyler said. Always has been. Thinks she's too good for this family now that she lives in Seattle. We gave her everything, Dad said. Paid for her college. Let her live here rent-free until she was 22. And this is how she repays us. By abandoning us. Maybe we should ask her for a loan, Mom suggested. For the house. She doesn't have that kind of money, Dad scoffed. She works at some computer company. Probably makes $60,000 a year. She can barely afford to fly home. They all laughed. I stood in that hallway listening to my family mock me, and something inside me shifted. I'd sent them over $200,000 in the past 3 years. Money they'd never acknowledged. Never thanked me for. Never even seemed to notice. And now they were calling me selfish. I left that night. Didn't say goodbye. Just got in my rental car and drove back to the airport. And the next morning I called my financial advisor. I want to buy a house, I said. In Massachusetts. I'll send you the address. The foreclosure sale had been scheduled for 2 weeks later. My parents were 3 months behind on their mortgage. The bank was taking the house. I'd bought it for $680,000. Through an LLC that couldn't be traced back to me. Then I'd done something else. I'd hired a property management company to handle everything. Told them to offer my parents a very generous deal. They could stay in the house rent-free for as long as they wanted. All expenses paid. Property taxes, maintenance, everything. The only condition? They had to sign a rental agreement acknowledging they were tenants, not owners. They'd been so relieved to keep the house that they'd signed without reading carefully. For 14 months they'd lived there. Believing they'd somehow worked out a deal with the bank. Believing they still owned their home. They had no idea their daughter was their landlord. And I'd let them believe it. Because I wanted to see what they'd do. How they'd act. Whether they'd ever even once acknowledge that maybe I wasn't the failure they thought I was. They hadn't. Instead, they'd apparently decided to sell a house they didn't own and kick me out with 48 hours notice. Now they knew the truth. And I wasn't done yet. I ignored their calls for the rest of the day. Went to dinner with my leadership team. Came home to my penthouse. Poured a glass of wine. Looked at my phone. 43 missed calls now. The messages had evolved from angry to panicked. Mom *, Jessica, please call us. Mom *, we need to understand what's happening. Mom *, how do you own our house? Mom *, please baby, we're scared. Dad *, Jessica, we need to talk about this like adults. Dad *, there must be some mistake. Dad *, call me. Tyler *, Jess, seriously, what is going on? Tyler *, Mom is crying. Tyler *, Dad's lawyer says the document is real. Tyler *, how is this possible? I took a sip of my wine. Composed a message. Sent it to the family group chat. Me *, if you want answers, come to my office tomorrow. 10 a.m. Address is 1800 9th Avenue, Seattle. 42nd floor. Don't be late. Mom * Seattle? Jessica, we can't just fly to Seattle. Me *, then I guess you won't get your answers. I turned off my phone and went to bed. They came. I knew they would. My assistant called me at 9:45 a.m. Miss Hamilton? You have visitors in the lobby. They don't have an appointment, but they say they're your family. Send them up. I stood at my office window watching the city. I'd chosen this office specifically for the view. You could see everything from up here. The harbor. The mountains. The whole sprawling city that had become my home. The door opened. My assistant ushered them in. Miss Hamilton, you're... Thank you, Priya. Hold my calls, please. She left. Closed the door. I turned around. My parents stood in the doorway looking completely out of place. Mom in her Kohl's cardigan. Dad in his department store suit. Tyler behind them in khakis and a button-down. They were staring. At my office. At the view. At the modern furniture and the art on the walls and the assistant sitting outside at her desk. Jessica. Mom's voice was small. What is this place? My office. Come in. Sit. They moved slowly like they were in a museum. Dad's eyes were moving over everything. The diplomas on my wall. The awards. The framed article from Forbes with my photo. I don't understand, he said. You work here. I run this division. The cloud infrastructure platform for Cascade Technologies. Cascade. Tyler's eyes went wide. Cascade Technologies? The Fortune 500 company. That's the one. But you work at a startup, Mom said. You do computers. I did work at a startup. My startup. I founded it 6 years ago. Grew it to $23 million in revenue. Sold it to Cascade for $340 million. I stayed on as divisional CEO. Silence. They were all staring at me like I was speaking a foreign language. You. Dad sat down heavily in one of my chairs. You sold a company for $340 million. Yes. That's not possible. You never told us about any of this. I tried to. Multiple times. You weren't interested. We would have remembered if you told us you sold a company for hundreds of millions of dollars. Tyler said. Would you? Because I remember calling you 3 years ago, Dad, to tell you about my first major funding round. You talked for 30 seconds and then spent 40 minutes telling me about Tyler's promotion to assistant manager. I remember texting you, Mom, when we hit our first $1 million in revenue. You responded with, "That's nice, honey. Did you see Tyler's engagement photos?" I remember emailing you all when the acquisition was finalized. Tyler responded with, "Cool. Can you lend me $5,000 for a new car?" They were all quiet. You never cared about my success, I continued. You cared about what I could do for you. How much money I could send. How little I demanded in return. That's not fair, Mom said. Her voice was shaking. We're your family. We supported you. Did you? Because from where I'm standing, you spent 28 years telling me I wasn't good enough. That Tyler was the smart one. The successful one. The one you were proud of. We never said that, Dad said weakly. You did. Constantly. At every family dinner. Every holiday. Every phone call. I pulled out my phone. Started scrolling. Here. Last Christmas. I called to tell you I'd been promoted to C. You said, "That's wonderful, dear. Did we tell you Tyler made regional manager? We're so proud." Or how about this one, Thanksgiving 2 years ago? I mentioned I was buying a vacation home. You said, "Must be nice to waste money like that. Tyler just bought his first house, a real investment." I set the phone down. Everything I did was diminished. Everything Tyler did was celebrated. For 28 years. Tyler looked uncomfortable. Jess, I didn't know they were doing that. Didn't you? You were right there. Every time. Soaking up the praise while they tore me down. This is ridiculous, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. We loved you. We still love you. Then why did you try to sell my house? That stopped him cold. The house you're living in, I continued. The house you've been living in rent-free for 14 months. My house. The one I bought when you were facing foreclosure. The one I saved. Without telling you. Without asking for anything in return. Because despite everything, you're still my family. Mom's hand went to her mouth. You bought, but how? The foreclosure sale. I bought it through an LLC. Set you up with a property management company. Paid all your expenses. Let you believe you'd worked something out with the bank. I leaned against my desk. I was waiting to see if you'd ever figure it out. If you'd ever wonder who was being so generous. If you'd ever think maybe Jessica helped us. We thought the bank gave us a deal, Dad said quietly. Of course you did. Because you never thought I had that kind of money. You never thought I was capable of success. The next day they showed up at my office and what they saw made my dad drop to his knees. Dad's legs seemed to give out. He sank down right there in my office, his face crumpling. Oh God, he whispered. Jessica, what have we done? You tried to evict me from my own house, I said calmly. With 48 hours, notice. After I spent 14 months paying your bills, your property taxes, your maintenance. After I saved you from losing everything. We didn't know, Mom said. He was crying now. Baby, we didn't know it was you. You didn't know because you never asked. You never wondered. You just took and never once thought about where the money was coming from. I pulled out a folder from my desk. Opened it. Do you want to know how much I've sent you over the past 6 years? I have records. Every transfer. Every loan that was never repaid. Every emergency that required thousands of dollars. I slid the paper across the desk. $287,000. That's how much I've given you. On top of buying your house and paying all the expenses for over a year. Dad picked up the paper with shaking hands. Stared at the number. I never asked you to pay me back, I said. I never mentioned it. Because you're my family. But I want you to understand something. I did all of that while you called me selfish. While you mocked my career. While you told everyone I was the disappointing daughter. We never said that, Mom protested weakly. You did. Thanksgiving. 14 months ago. I heard you. In the kitchen. Calling me selfish. Saying I'd abandoned you. Laughing about how I probably make $60,000 a year. Recognition dawned on Mom's face. You heard that. Every word. And I left. And I bought your house the next day. Because I wanted you to have a home. Even though you didn't deserve my help. Tyler was looking at the floor. Jess, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I thought they actually appreciated what you were doing for us. They didn't. They don't. To them, I'm still the disappointing daughter who moved away and works some computer job. That's not true, Dad said. But he was still on his knees. Still holding that paper. Still staring at the numbers. Isn't it? Then tell me, Dad. Tell me one thing I've accomplished that you've been proud of. One thing you've celebrated. One time you called me to say, good job, without immediately changing the subject to Tyler. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Nothing came out. That's what I thought. Mom was sobbing now. Full body-shaking sobs. We're terrible parents. Oh God, Jessica, we're terrible parents. You weren't terrible. You just loved Tyler more. That's okay. Parents have favorites. But you could have at least pretended to care about me. We did care, she choked out. We do care. We just... Tyler was easier. He did what we expected. He followed the path we understood. And you were always so independent. So determined to do things your way. We didn't know how to relate to you. So you didn't try. No, she admitted. We didn't try. And we should have. I looked at the three of them. My father on his knees. My mother crying. My brother unable to meet my eyes. I should have felt vindicated. Triumphant. This was what I'd been working toward. The moment they realized they'd been wrong about me. Dad, I just felt tired. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You have 3 options. They all looked up. Option 1, you move out of the house. I sell it. You find somewhere else to live. We continue this relationship exactly as it's been. Surface level, transactional, meaningless. Jessica, Dad started. I held up my hand. Option 2, you stay in the house. But you pay fair market rent. $3,200 a month. You cover your own expenses. You stop asking me for money. And we work on building an actual relationship. One where you acknowledge my existence beyond what I can do for you. And option 3? Tyler asked quietly. Option 3, you stay in the house. Rent-free. All expenses paid. But with conditions. You go to family therapy. All of us. We work through this. We figure out how to be an actual family instead of whatever dysfunctional thing we've been doing. And you make an effort. A real effort. To understand my life. My work. Who I actually am. Silence. I can't force you to care about me, I continued. I can't force you to be proud of me. But I can require you to try. To show up. To do the work. We'll do option 3, Mom said immediately. Jessica, we'll do whatever it takes. Will you? Because it's going to be hard. Therapy isn't easy. Facing what you've done isn't easy. We'll do it, Dad said. He was trying to stand up. I went over, helped him to his feet. I promise you, Jessica. We'll do the work. And Tyler. My brother nodded. Yeah. Yes. I'll do it. I've been a terrible brother. I need to fix that. I studied them. Looking for signs of insincerity. For that familiar dismissiveness. Instead I saw regret. Shame. And something that might have been genuine remorse. Okay, I said finally. Option 3 it is. I'll have my assistant set up therapy appointments. We'll do sessions twice a month. You'll fly out here on your own dime. No excuses. No cancellations unless it's an emergency. We'll be here, Mom promised. And Mom? Dad? I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this because I need you. I don't. I have a life here. Friends. Career I love. I'm doing this because I want to give you a chance. One chance. To be the parents you should have been all along. We won't waste it, Dad said. See that you don't. Because if you do, I'm done. Completely done. No more money. No more help. No more relationship. This is your last chance. They both nodded. Good. Now let's talk about the house. Over the next 3 hours we worked through the details. I showed them my full financial portfolio, not to brag but so they understood exactly who I was and what I'd built. We talked about the property management company, the expenses I'd been covering, the repairs I'd authorized. Then we talked about them. About Dad's business struggles. How he'd been too proud to ask me for help directly. How he'd thought the small amounts he requested were just family helping family. About Mom's health issues. How she'd been scared to burden me with the costs. About Tyler's resentment. How he'd felt overshadowed by my success once he finally understood the scope of it. It wasn't easy. There were tears. Arguments. Moments where I almost walked away. But we got through it. I have one question, Tyler said as we were wrapping up. Why didn't you just tell us? About the company. The money. All of it. I tried, I said. Multiple times. You weren't listening. So I stopped trying. And after a while it became easier to just let you believe what you wanted to believe. But you sent us all that money. You bought the house. You could have just let us fail. I could have. But you're my family. And despite everything I love you. I just needed you to see me. Really see me. We see you now, Dad said. And Jessica? We're proud of you. So incredibly proud. I'm sorry it took this long to say it. Those words. The ones I'd been waiting 28 years to hear. They should have felt better. Maybe someday they would. Thank you, I said. They left that evening. Caught a red-eye back to Boston. I stood at my window watching the city lights, thinking about family and forgiveness and second chances. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. Tyler asterisk I looked you up. Forbes under 40. Tech Innovator of the Year. 7 magazine covers. How did we miss all of this? Me asterisk you weren't looking. Tyler asterisk yeah. I'm sorry about that. Really sorry. Me asterisk I know. See you at therapy next month. Tyler asterisk I'll be there. And Jess. I'm proud of you too. I should have said that a long time ago. I smiled. Set down my phone. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even close to perfect. My family had spent years making me feel invisible, and one conversation in my office wasn't going to fix that. But it was a start, and maybe that was enough. The therapy sessions started a month later. The first one was brutal. We barely made it through 90 minutes without someone walking out. The second one was better. We started talking about patterns. About the dynamic we'd fallen into. About how we'd all contributed to the dysfunction. By the third session things started to shift. Mom told me about how scared she'd been when I moved away. How she'd felt like she was losing me. How she'd pushed me away because it hurt less than letting me leave. Dad admitted he'd felt intimidated by my ambition. That he'd never understood what I did and felt stupid asking. So he'd dismissed it instead. Tyler confessed he'd always felt like he was competing with me. That Mom and Dad had held me up as this smart one when we were kids and he'd spent his whole life trying to prove he was just as good. We were all broken in different ways. All dealing with our own insecurities and fears. And finally we were talking about it. 6 months after that day in my office, my parents came to visit for Thanksgiving. They stayed in my guest room, the one with the view of the Sound. I cooked dinner. Nothing fancy. Just turkey and all the traditional sides. We sat around my dining table and for the first time in my life they asked me about my work. Really asked. Wanted to know about the technology, the business model, the challenges, the successes. And I told them. Everything. Dad asked intelligent questions. Mom took notes because she wanted to understand. Tyler admitted he was thinking about going back to school for a computer science degree. I've been watching what you've built, he said. And I realized I've been playing it safe my whole life. Doing what was expected. But you took risks. You created something. I want to do that too. You should, I said. It's terrifying. But it's worth it. After dinner we sat in my living room with wine and coffee. Looking out at the city lights. Jessica. Mom said quietly. Thank you. For what? For not giving up on us. For giving us this chance. Most people wouldn't have. You're my family. I wanted to try. We don't deserve you, Dad said. Maybe not. But we're working on it. That's what matters. Tyler raised his coffee cup. To Jessica. The most successful person in this family. And the most patient. Here, here, Mom said. We clinked glasses. And for the first time in 28 years I felt like maybe, just maybe, we were actually a family. Not a perfect family. Not an easy family. But a real one. And that was enough. A week later I got a letter in the mail. From the property management company. Officially transferring the deed of 4782 Riverside Drive out of my LLC and into my parents' names. I called them. Did you get something from the property management company? I asked. Yes, Dad said. Jessica, we can't accept this. It's too much. It's already done. The house is yours. Free and clear. Consider it a gift. But the therapy, the work we're doing, you said. I said you'd have to pay rent if you wanted to stay. But you've been showing up. Doing the work. Actually trying. So I'm giving you the house. Should have been yours all along. I was just holding it in trust until you were ready to appreciate it. Mom got on the phone. He was crying again. But happy tears this time. Thank you, baby. Thank you so much. You're welcome. But Mom? Dad? This doesn't mean the therapy stops. We keep working on this. On us. We will, Dad promised. We absolutely will. That was 2 years ago. Now when my parents visit they stay for a week. We have actual conversations. They know my friends. They understand my work. They celebrate my successes. Tyler did go back to school. He's in his second year of a computer science program. We video chat every week so I can help him with his coding assignments. Last month they all flew out for my birthday. The whole family. And when we sat down to dinner, Dad stood up and made a toast. To Jessica, he said. The daughter who refused to give up on us. Who built an empire while we weren't paying attention. Who saved us even when we didn't deserve it. We're so proud of you. And we love you. Not for what you can do for us. But for who you are. I cried. Couldn't help it. Because those were the words I'd been waiting my whole life to hear. And they finally meant something. Because they were true.